Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Despite Sadro having only missed the podium once, Gasper's impressive run of wins extends his championship lead to a whopping 54 points. Things are looking dire for the other drivers, and we're only halfway through the season. But much like many of the previous tracks, today's circuit throws a bit of a curveball at our competitors. Zandvoort is no stranger to most of them, but this smaller national layout is rarely used here on iRacing. Shorter laps, fewer opportunities to pass, and in some incredibly tricky corners could catch out just about anyone. We'll see if it does as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacker. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, F1 will be headed here next summer, but certainly not this version. Fill our audience in on how the national layout differs.
First of all, also from me, goedendag van Zandvoort. As Jory said, we're here today on the National Circuit, which in the first part is no different than the Grand Prix version, where this 8-turn, 2.9 kilometer long version differs is at the Rob Schlottemacher Bocht, which turns from a flat-out left-hand kink on the Grand Prix circuit to a tight and slightly off-cambered right-hand hairpin. Not only that, but there's also a rise to challenge drivers alongside it being a double apexed hairpin. After that, it's back to business as we enter the Hans Ernst Bocht and enter the long double left-hander back to the start-finish straight. So, as you can see, these 2.9 kilometers will tick by fast. There's enough challenges on the track to keep the drivers honest, and action is probably guaranteed. However, to better give you an understanding of the new challenges these drivers must face, let us send you trackside with our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Zandvoort. Tarzan will be the most likely place for passes here at the end of the pit straight. And even though you've got a fair bit of banking in this corner, the fact that it's a full 180 degrees means it's best to square off a late apex due to this car's horrible understeer on throttle. From there, you'll try to line the car up for a wide entry into Gerlach. It's very blind and needs you to waste no time getting the car off to the right for the braking into Hugenholz. Much like with Tarzan, take that apex as late as you can because you'll really need the run out of here. Even though the track is shortened and you're just weaving through Hoens Ridge and part of Slotemacher, being slow opens you up to attack. That's because you've now got an incredibly sharp and slow hairpin. The real problem here is usually simply getting the car to rotate. It's achingly slow, and getting back on the throttle too soon will just send you understeering into the grass on the exit. Now you're on what's usually the backstretch, heading into Hans Ernst. Watch out for the lift throttle oversteer since it can easily kick in if you coast it through the first apex. Then you'll use this heavy banking to carry the car as you plant your right foot once again and fly towards Kumho. There's very little braking into this right-hander, and carrying as much speed as you can without sending the car into the gravel can make or break your lap. Once you're back on the power, you won't be lifting through Lyndike, and by now you'll see drivers get very eager to make passes happen. It's so difficult to overtake in this layout, and there's surprisingly little draft down the front stretch. Expect cars to cover off the inside right away if they feel the slightest bit under threat, but hopefully you've now finished a lap around Zandvoort. They see a lap around Zandvoort. Hopefully we don't throw poor Steph onto an oval because he'll probably try to turn right where there's a left-hander. But in the meantime, we definitely want to remind you that the Weekend Warriors is brought to you by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. It's thanks to them that we have another season of coverage here of the Weekend Warriors, which includes coverage of the championship points. We'll start with the Spec 1 series. This is the essentially the pro level that they are competing at. David Gaspers, as I mentioned, look at that 54-point lead. He is here today, and he's looking fast yet again. But Sadro is incredibly consistent. That could come back to help him down the line. Mac Reevy is a full win behind, and then you get to Michael Shaw in fourth. And then Elson actually jumps up 2 positions to find himself within the top 5. That's our only change, though, there in the Spec 1. Let's take a look at the Spec 2. Steph, how are those sitting?
Yes, for the directionally unchallenged, it's Ian Haycox winning the championship at this point after Okayama. But also for the directionally challenged, Jeff Jacobson is in second place. 20 points between them. Edward Doherty, third place. He gained 2 positions. I think that's over. No, that is actually in the Spec 2 championship, but only 2 points behind Jeff Jacobson. Aaron Fugale still sitting in 4th place. He lost a position in this championship, but as you can see, it's super tight right now. 5th place, Bob Kern, once our leader. Now he's already a bit behind Ian Haycox in 1st place.
I'm glad to see Spec 2 giving us a little bit more of a race to the top than we're seeing in Spec 1. Speaking of the race, let's take a look at this race in particular. As we said, 7 out of 12 rounds that we're running. Now they have 3 drop weeks And it'll take a lot of bad times for David Gaspers to fill up those drop weeks with zeros or bad results, but you never know. They are open setups on these Spec Racer Fords, but they've limited the fuel compared to what the real one does. So you can expect one pit stop in this 40-minute race. That is for fuel only. They should not take tires unless they have a little bit of an error setting the car up for the pit stop. They also ration the points, which is a bit unique to this series, which basically means that though the podium stays the same, from there on down, last place will always get 25 points. And that ensures that you don't get basically better points just because fewer drivers showed up. They also have one spare car out there in case they have an incident. And that could be important because the walls are very, very close around here. As always, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, all you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click on subscribe, and then you'll get all of the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed. Currently in the qualifying, Gaspers has the provisional pole over Donald Fitterer, and it's by 0.3 of a second. Now, it's hard to tell if Fitterer can close that gap because Gaspers didn't get a practice lap in around here. He didn't set a single time at that point. So he came out and showed a lap here, Steph, and then from there, everybody kind of hung their heads.
Yeah, David Gaspers putting on the practice, version of this. Yeah, sometimes it is just better to just go out, flat out, and see what comes from it. And right now, David Gaspers is really showing that he can do that 0.3, as I said, ahead of Fitterer. Ryan Walker, 3rd place. Not really expecting him up here, especially in qualifying, because the last few rounds he did not qualify whatsoever. So yeah, Ryan finally showing what he's capable of in qualifying. And then we already have Ian Haycox, only 200th behind Ryan Walker at the moment in 4th place.
And Ian is important because even though he's in 4th, he is currently on pole for the Spec 2 race today in that 2:35. Now, if you're new to this series and wondering how to tell apart the Spec 1 from the Spec 2, because, well, they're all in the same car, if you look for the 200 numbers, there you can see Ian's is 235. Anything 200 and above, they are a Spec 2 driver. Below that, you're looking at Spec 1. However, they do not score separate points. They're all fighting for the same points out there on track. So if they make a pass between a Spec 1 and a Spec 2, there's still a point swap between the two. Ian's going to come around, see if he can improve on that 122.5, which was his first lap. And he must have had an off because it looks like that one did not count for him.
Yeah, and it is going to be interesting what these guys can do. The good thing is for us, Stevie Ray is here, so we exactly know when the pit window opens. As always, Stevie Ray, one of the first, if not the first, people to pit.
Now this track, even in the GP version, is usually kind of considered one where it's tough to try and overtake other cars. They've taken out a big portion of the track here and even shortened one of the spots where we tend to see passes on the big course. What are you expecting for overtakes today? Is this going to be a lot of single file, or do you think there really are any opportunities other than strategy and mistakes?
To be honest, I would say we replaced one overtaking spot with another, because the only overtaking spot that the Grand Prix version gives you is that turn 9, that first hairpin in that kind of like stadium section, if you like so. And we instead have that hairpin at Schlottermacher Bocht. So yeah, obviously the run down to the Hans Ernst Bocht is a little bit shorter, but in reality it is still good enough because we have that weird hairpin, which is off-camber double apex. So if you make a mistake there, it surely is going to open that run down to the Hans Ernst Bocht to do something there.
As we watch Dobet come across the line, that last lap not faster for him. He stays in 10th place. And it is rather cool out here today. So the drivers seen those temperatures climbing a little bit, we're hearing from some of the drivers in the chat. So it might be tough for them to improve. You can see 80 degrees on the track surface. That's a little bit warmer than it was in practice.
27 degrees Celsius. That is, for you metric guys out there, 14 miles per hour is the wind from the southwest, or that would be 23 kilometers an hour. So quite some wind here at the shoreline, because literally the beach is just on the other side of the road here. So you could say if you take a line a little bit too lenient through the turn, you're going to end up in the sea. But yeah, apart from that, it is going to be an interesting race. Obviously, these cars aren't very air dependent or very affected by the wind, but that track temperature, we might have to keep an eye on that, because that could lead to some people taking a little bit of trouble with their tires throughout the race.
Riding on board with Donald Fitterer, who's still in second on the front row with Gaspers. He's been trying to improve that lap that he set, the 1:22.3, but just has not been able to find anything out there. It almost looks like it is a bit tough to find some open track, because this is a relatively short lap around here.
1 minute 22, and you're already done with your lap if you're David Gaspers. I'm keeping an eye also on the track temperature, and it did go down again by 1 degree Celsius. So we might see maybe someone improving their lap time, because the track is getting a little bit cooler again. But as you said, it is a little bit tricky to get here some open track, like Nico Schuk is doing right now.
Yeah, Nico's managed to get himself up to 16th. Not this latest lap, but the one before was a 1:23.3 for the 287 car. Ryan Short, who we're watching come around, sitting in 10th position. The 550, seeing if he can improve as he crosses the start-finish line. Let's see what this one's got for him. Looks like that one did not count. Must have been on an out lap there. As he went past the pit entry here, I've noticed that we haven't mentioned yet that the way that pit entry is a bit unique at this track. It's I think it's going to take a little bit of practice.
I'm pretty sure some people here in the service have PTSD about that pit entrance, because you're braking into quite a tricky to maneuver chicane by itself, but you also, as said, have to brake, which really isn't good in this car, to turn and brake, and it is rather tight. So if you get wrong with your line, you are gonna hit that right side Armco barrier. Let's also not forget that pit exit, because it throws you right onto the apex of the racing line of that turn 1, the Tarzanbocht, as it is called here. So both the pit entrance and pit exit quite crucial at this place.
Gaspers comes across. He's only set one lap time, but that one lap time was good enough for pole. He's still coming around and putting blanks on the board ever since he set down that 1:22 flat. Keep an eye on Sadro as well, because he's moved up into third on the second row with a 22.4. Wonder if maybe he could be a little bit of a threat. He's got about 4/10 to get up to David Gaspers still. As he comes around Lion Dyke and onto the front stretch, flat out in these cars. Don't need to worry about heading off to the side unless maybe you have some weird trouble out there. But as he crosses the line, this next one, a 22.6, 2/10 down on his best lap still. Sadro not known for qualifying, so it looks like he'll have to continue to work on that one as the checkered flag comes out.
And one thing we have to mention here really quickly is that between second place Donald Fitterer and 17th place Mathieu Dont is about a second. So taking Gaspers out of this equation, who is 3/10 up on the field, this field is extremely tight here today.
Gaspers coming around for another one. Can he get 2 laps in? Maybe he only needed 1 so far. And as he crosses the line, he does go faster at 21.9. Another 10th knocked off for the German. As a few other drivers stream across, some of them using a little bit of draft from the car ahead. Not as effective here. Vagley's going to abandon his lap. We're watching Bradshaw amongst a few other cars. That's Mathieu Dont and Ian Wilson up ahead of him. Should be able to complete this lap. Well, certainly not Bradshaw, though, as he spins out of Kumho.
That's one way to do it. Either way, Mathieu Dont coming over the line, he does not improve. And Ian Wilson, I think he also did not. Yeah, well, he did improve, actually, from 21st up to 18th for him.
Yep, so a couple spots at the back of the field that he was able to grab some tenths. That's it for our field, though. Everybody has put a lap time in. Nobody else can manage to put one down because they've all crossed the checkered flag. So let's go through our starting order. David Gaspers is going to be on the pole with Donald Fitterer starting in second place. Then row 2 has Sadro to the inside. Ryan Walker will be starting in fourth. Ian Haycox is P5 with Steve Elson on the outside of row 3. Tom Gradwell starts 7th position. Then you've got Adam Bradshaw in 8th. Row 5, Michael Dobek will be P9. Nico Shook managed to crack the top 10 with his 122.9.
Brian D. Short only missing out by 22 1,000ths of a second there on that 10th place of Nico Shook. He will line up in 11th place. Seeloff down in 12th place. Bob Kern and Samuel Dick will be on row 7. Jeff Jacobson, 15th for him. Stevie Ray down in 16th for his number 11. Mathieu Dont, as we saw, he is sitting in 17th on the grid here. Today, Ian Wilson, 18th, went to him. Hugh Haycox, quite far down here today, 1.5 seconds down on Gaspers, 1.1 seconds down on the Donald Fitterer, so he most definitely will have to make some ways up. Starting from 19th and 20th will go to Aaron Fugele.
21st belongs to for Colin. He's the last driver to put a time in. All of these remaining drivers did not manage to put laps in. Jerry McAreevy, 22nd. Joe Aguilar was not in the session, so I'm not sure that he will actually start. Same thing with Amaral. And then Edgar Sanchinelli, who is here. Looks like he will be tail in Charlie on the field, waiting for the last of the cars to come out to the grid. Then they're going to be led around on a pace lap. It is a rolling start here in the Weekend Warriors. And, of course, we will be able to bring you 40 minutes of racing. Sim Stickers will be able to bring you 40 minutes of racing here at Zandvoort. This is going to be another fascinating one. I've really been enjoying the track schedule this season, Steph, with the variety they brought in, the number of tracks that we've either never seen here on the Global Sim Racing channel or almost never get to see.
Yeah, exactly, and it really suits these cars. It's the SCCA in real life, and they also mostly only race on those club tracks. So it really is a good thing that they have stepped down from the draft tracks, from the tracks that, as a lot of people say, don't require any skill to drive. So it's good to see either way. Yes, draft battles are awesome to watch, but they can get quite hectic and can produce quite some carnage. Whereas these tracks, they're much more focused on what the driver can do with their car, and we still have to say they generate a lot of good racing.
Yeah, we've seen some great races so far this season on these club circuits as they work their way down to Tarzan and into the first corner. Question is, will we see some brave passes with the difficulties in overtaking down into that first turn on the first lap? Is anybody going to get a little bit aggressive to try and make an overtake?
The bigger question will be if someone is able to actually hold their position by being able to take that more momentum on the outside through turn 1, because it is quite heavily banked and you might have to brake that a little bit too much on the inside if you're also stuck to the inside. Obviously, if you can accelerate out and let yourself slide out, then that will be a much different story. The bigger question, though, is, Joe, at Zandvoort, they have sold out within 24 hours of opening the tickets for the F1 Grand Prix. And as I said, they could have sold about 1 million or more, and they would have still sold out. The question really is, how much would they have sold out this track and this configuration with the Spec Racer 4? Because my thought here is that it would have still sold out quite heavily.
These cars are fun to watch battle. Like you mentioned, really down to the driver's track and a driver's car on how much you can wheel these things. And you can see, even though there's not a lot in the difference between setup, because yes, they can tweak them, but there's limited things that you can do to this car. Drivers still are able to make a huge difference from first to down to last in the field as they come out of the Hans Ernst chicane / hairpin, whatever you want to call it. They now come to the final 2 corners. Going to be very critical as the sun comes out as well, and the temperatures have gone up since qualifying. It is up to 86 degrees since they were doing that. So with the track getting warmer, let's see if that affects anybody's setup, anybody's handling of their car. Out of Lyondike now, named after the Indy 500 winner. Let's see who has the good start. Gasper's waiting for the Porsche pace car to peel in. It is a long wait. Green flag is out. Gaspers gets on the loud pedal. Daniel Sadro waiting patiently back there with Donald Fitter, was well back at the drop of the green, so he loses out on that second place. Sadro thinking about trying to take first away, but he's not quite up there. Cars streaming into Tarzan. A little bit of 3 wide, mostly 2 wide, but otherwise they are safely through.
Exactly, the first corner very safely navigated by everyone. Now the challenge comes to turn 2 up a rise, and then the third turn here, Hugenholzbucht, which can be quite tricky, especially with the inside curve.
Now I'm going to put my tinfoil hat. Whoa, and we got an incident. Looks like Matthew Don't involved in that, and I'm trying to see who else.
No, I think that was Vögele. I might be wrong though. But that actually already started down the start-finish straight because, he got a very big hit there onto the inside.
Another car spinning. Bob Kern, unfortunately, discovering just how difficult it is coming into Hans Ernst. He gets turned around and he's going to fall all the way to the tail end of the field, barring Matthew Don't. Ooh, 1 driver off coming out of Kumho as well. I believe that was Dobek. Lost a ton of speed, lost a lot of spots, but here we go. Battle for the lead as Sadro manages to get to the inside, but he's not brave enough on the brakes, and Gaspers is able to hold him back. Fitterer behind him. His teammate is also dealing with the challenge of Steve Elson. Now, I was about to say before that incident coming through here in Hugenholz, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on. Fitterer had second place, but he held back, and he's the teammate of Sadro. Sadro's the one fighting for the championship. Think he maybe let that spot go to Sadro intentionally?
Fernando is faster than you. But no. In all reality, I just think Donald did sleep a little bit on that start, and Daniel Sadro just glided past because of that. I don't think there's any thinking involved in that, because after all, Donald Fitterer, he himself is fighting for some positions a little bit down the order on the standings. I
can report that Nico Shukadinov in the hairpin just went a little wide, lost about 3 positions in that process. He's actually still in a little bit of trouble down there, as most drivers trying to get by the slowed car, his momentum interrupted. We ride on board with Elson though. The number 56 has got a run on Fitterer. In fact, enough of a run that he's going to duck to the inside. No defense from Donald as they hit Tarzan corner. Side by side through it. You asked if you could hold the momentum around the outside. The answer for Donald is no for today.
Donald had a little bit of a twitch there through the middle of the turn, so he had to back out of the throttle again. But he had the momentum to stay up there, just without that twist he sadly had. Either way, Donald Fitterer now down to 4th place. Steve Nelson move him up to 3rd place.
Don't need to go to it. Jeff Jacobson with a little bit of a spin in Tarzan loses positions. Elson already under attack from Fitterer, who's poking his nose right and left to see if he could find a way through. As he's doing that, he's got to watch out for Ryan Walker behind him, who could potentially take the spot.
The fight is also hot for 6th place. That is the Spec 2 lead. That is between Adam Branch and Ian Haycox. Ian Haycox tried to do something into Rob Schlottemacher Bocht, but did not succeed in doing so. So Ian Haycox is still in 7th place.
Bradshaw and Haycox tend to be fighting for this lead in the Spec 2 race week in and week out. Two of the most likely to find themselves promoted up to Spec 1 if they can win that championship. Down the front stretch, though, Bradshaw looks plenty far away from Ian Haycox, so no threat as they come into Tarzan this time through. A little bit behind them, Dobek is trying to overtake Brian Short, and this is for 10th. Remember, Michael had himself a little bit of an off on the first lap that cost him time, and a lot of cars managed to get by. That's one back down.
That was for 4th place in the Spec 2 category. And up front, all the way up front, between David Gaspers and Daniel Sadro, it's rather interesting because Daniel Sadro is able to keep the pace with David Gaspers.
He's been keeping him in check and making sure that he doesn't run away with this one in the first few minutes. So any mistake could be costly to David and hand over that lead to his championship rival. They are also, you can see, pulling away from 3rd place Steven Elson. There's about 2 seconds between 2nd place and 3rd place. Elson probably has other things on his mind because ever since he overtook Donald Fitter, Fitter has not been letting go of the gearbox of that car.
Steven Elson being about 3/10 slower than our leaders. Let's actually see how it is at this lap. Daniel Sandra with 22.232 and Steven Elson with 22.9. Donald Fitter 2/10 faster than Steven Elson. So Elson most definitely under quite some pressure for this 3rd position.
Fitter waits in the sandwich between these two. That's Walker just behind him. Walker, another UK&I driver. Of course, Fitter hailing from New York himself. Got a little bit of action for 13th position, which is now, I guess, 14th because they're all getting clogged up behind Nico Schuch. And side by side between Seawald with some contact. Aaron Vaguely somehow manages to squeak through. Another hit to the back for Sea Love. This one from Ian Wilson.
Yeah, a little bit of an awkward situation for everyone involved because Nico Schuch very slow through turn 2. That enabled Aaron Vaguely to dive up the inside of Sea Love, and then Sea Love just closing the door there, getting a side bump, and then, yeah, on the 3rd try, did kind of save it, but had to slow down the way for that save, and Ian Wilson, nowhere to go, clatters the back of Sea Love.
Yeah, I'd say fair play to Aaron on that one. He was fully inside. It was an aggressive move, but a fair move. And he was hugged down to the apex, so didn't exactly drift up into Sea Love. They might get round 2 because they haven't drifted too far apart as you see them come onto the front
Speaking
stretch.
about round 2, I'm sorry, Ian Haycox just overtook Adam Bradshaw into turn 1.
Change for the lead in the Spec 2. Haycox up to 6th overall. Bradshaw's not going to take this one lying down, though. Look at him start to close in as they go through Gerlach. Could he pull the same move that we just saw? Nope, he's not willing to try and send it in deep down into Hugenholtz. Instead, tries to square off the corner, get the run and get the speed on their way up to the Slotemacher hairpin.
And then Bradshaw probably not close enough to do anything into Slotemacher. Yes, indeed. So he has to stay behind, maybe get a better run out of it.
A spin behind them. A spin, and actually it's Stevie Ray. He gets hit. That was by Michael Dobek.
And now he has to wait quite a long time. All the way back to 17th he goes. Only in front of Jeff Jacobs now.
Watch the replay on this one. This started with Ray spinning all on his own, and it's difficult to control these cars as it is. Actually, did he get hit by Dobek?
Yes, he did.
It was very, very good close.
He did get hit. A little bit of a net code on my side. Either way, I'm pretty sure that would have been ahead between the two. Yeah, very unfortunate situation. I even do think that Stevie Ray didn't even apply the brake there. No, he did not. And I can see. Boom, she goes.
And we had a pass for the lead as we were watching that replay. This was down the front stretch. I mentioned using Kumho and Leyendijk to set themselves up for something into Tarzan. That's exactly what Sadro did. You could see he gets to the inside. Gaspers was unable to cover him off. And using that inside line, he finally gets it done.
Gaspers did try to do something into turn 2, had to stick back though. So with that, Daniel Zadro firmly into P1 he went. And David Gaspers right now, a little bit of a different situation for him, because the last time he didn't finish in first place was in round 2.
I thought it was round 1 that he missed out on. Yeah, it was round 1 that Gaspers at Pocono, he was beat by Halliburton.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wants that again, because look at how quickly defensive Sadro went. He is in no mood to try and give this one away and swap back and forth. He wants to stay up front.
Let's see if Sadro can hold his position on the inside of turn 1. Sadro with a better run, but now the momentum of Gaspers comes and he retakes his first place.
Well, it was a valiant effort, but it looks like that Gaspers has done a better job figuring out how to use that outside line through Tarzan, using the banking over the 51, try and make that move the long way around. And you know what? C-Love and Aaron Vagley have started to form a little bit of a rivalry because they made contact yet again, this one into Tarzan instead.
Let's see what actually happened on that. And yeah, that is rather interesting there. Seemed like Aaron was a little bit hot into turn 1. Let's actually see that from the inside. I'm sorry, that's C-Love on the inside. And
yeah, it's hard to tell because it does look like Aaron was losing it a little bit on the outside, so his car was drifting down to the bottom at the same time that Love was drifting up. Or at least that's my impression.
yeah, it does seem so. After all, a very awkward racing incident there between the two. As actually Daniel Zadro tries again into turn 1 to challenge for the lead. Let's actually see if that has some benefit to him now. Once again, he has to do it on the inside, tries to do everything, but once again, David Gaspers with the better momentum out of the turn.
He needs to stick Gaspers on an oval. I think he's figured out how to run the banking very, very well. The second time now that he's defended the long way around and denied Daniel Sadro. Sadro using every inch of the track. He went way wide off of that curb.
The only oval you could stick David Gaspers on would be the Monster Oval, because that's a right turn oval.
That's just you, I thought, that had trouble with that. Ooh, and do we have more problems with Vagley? Let's see if we can figure out what happened. Oh, and this one was all on his own down through Tarzan corner. A lot of cars having to take evasive action. Go ahead.
Really does seem that Aaron Figley has some kind of problem with turn 1 in this race, because that's the second time we see him either have a twitch or a spin through that turn 1, as Daniel Sadro once again comes on the draft of David Gaspers.
And Gaspers is once again going to give him the inside. He feels pretty good about this line. And Sadro's convinced that this bottom line can work somehow as he tries it again. And though he actually got a nose ahead this time, the momentum once again swings back in favor of Gaspers. He's on the outside of Gerlach, but it looks like Sadro's not quite brave enough to take it too wide through that kink.
But this time Daniel Sadro way closer for Rob Schlottemacher Bocht, which is now the hairpin instead of left-hand kink. So let's see if he tries something there, but no, sticks back. Obviously very tricky braking point, because you have to turn while braking. But now, yeah, a little bit of a mistake for Gaspers, but not able to do anything.
Vastly different lines between the two through Schlottemacher hairpin. They now come into Hans Ernst. Sadro, I'm kind of surprised. He's got Gaspers a little bit on the ropes.
Yeah, Sadro really puts the pressure on to Gaspers, and we really haven't seen Gaspers in a very long time be under such heavy pressure, so maybe getting a little bit rusty with the pressure, he might start to make some ever so little mistakes that we're not used from him.
So David Gaspers going to do the same thing, but this time Sadro's not. This time Sadro backs out of it. I was just wondering if maybe he'd try to square off the corner. He still takes the low line and stays behind. I think we've got some pitters, though, because here comes Steve Elson for what I believe should be a scheduled stop. Let's come back to the leaders. As all this has been going on, they are dropping the cars behind. Fitterer is about 4 seconds back, even with the side-by-side action. These two running an incredible pace.
Yeah, they already dropped Donald Fitterer by about 4 seconds, who himself is about 1.5 seconds in front of Ryan Walker, who started in 4th, is still in 4th place.
There you see Walker giving chase to Fitterer, teammate to Sadro. Sadro seemingly playing the rear gunner today Fitterer playing the rear gunner for Sadro. And Wilson got turned around, and this is in Slotemacher. No contact with anybody. Looks very similar, honestly, to the incident we saw with Stevie Ray. Ooh, pink car sneaking by to the inside.
Bit more to the inside of Ian, and I think Ian just did overbrake there a little bit, meaning he did brake too hard, thus locked the rear wheels and spun himself around. So I think that actually, even though looking similar, it has a little bit of a different cause than what happened to Popcorn. Or, Stevie Ray.
Watching these two head down the front stretch. That is still Ian Wilson trying to come back after his spin. Aaron Vaguely in front of him. Aaron currently running 15th, which is actually a net gain for him. He started in 20th. Coming back to Dobek now at this point. He is ahead of Sam Dick, and this is for 7th position. Michael fighting for the Spec 2 race, but Sam is in Spec 1.
Right behind him, we also have a battle, about 2.5 seconds behind him. That would be between Tom Gradwell and Brian D. Short. They are both Spec 2 drivers, so they are fighting for Spec 2 positions. They're right now 4th and 5th in Spec 2.
Might have a good opportunity onto the front stretch. There in the foreground, you saw that Dobek was actually being closed in upon by Sam Dick as well. Both duos getting close. The front one doesn't see a pass. The back one, with Brian Short poke his nose to the inside, is hopeful, but hope, unfortunately, is not going to be enough to get an overtake. See, C. Love has now taken a stop. Our highest pitter is still Steve Elson. Love might have had to take his spare car.
Steve Elson already going into turn 3, the Hugenholz Bocht, as C. Love takes off his pit stall and re-enters the racetrack in a very safely manner.
You can see just how much it throws you into the racing line, though, as we come back to our leaders who come around Lyondike. They still have time left if they want to go a little longer before their pit stops, and it seems like they do. We look back over the rear of Gaspers as Sadro takes another look to the inside, and once again, he elects not to go for the overtake once they hit the braking zone. We saw a tiny lockup from Gaspers this time.
Yeah, it seems like he is making those little mistakes under pressure right now, but obviously way too little to do something for Daniel Sadro right now. But Sadro keeping him very honest. If the little mistake turns a little bit bigger, it is already a pass for the lead for Daniel Sadro. So David Gaspers really has to be careful what he's doing right now, and just look at how different these lines are here through Rob Schlottemarker Bocht. But now Sadro has the run, gets a little bit of a twitch, but he's still sort of happens that. No, he's not.
It almost looked like he had something, but it's difficult to pass here in the Hans Ernst, and though he would have had the inside of the first apex, you can see it switches around. he would have the outside of the second portion of the lap. Instead, maybe looking to finally set things up once more, coming onto the front stretch. Can he get a nose fully ahead and finally make this pass? He's looking a lot closer than he was previously. I think Sadro might have something here. He's probably going to be given the inside, and indeed, Gasper is going to force him to use that shallow line. He's definitely got a slight nose ahead. Under braking, they're a lot more even. It's been a while since we've seen them go wheel to wheel through this corner, and I think Sadro's found something. No, he is not. Still, he cannot get it done with the low line.
I'm starting to think that Daniel Sandro has to pull a little bit of an F1 move onto him, meaning just run him out of that space on the outside and leave him on the dry. Either way, Daniel Sandro, very respectable driver, and he right now does not think about such maneuvers as of yet. And once again, a little bit of a mistake. There is the big twitch now from David Gaspers.
That's exactly what he needed, and he's much farther along. But the question is, can he get this done into Hans Ernst? It's a much shorter run in this version of the track. You can see that Gaspers is trying to carry the speed, and he does so successfully. Just incredible defense from the German. Let's take a look and see what kicked that off.
Yeah, once again, that outside line of David Gaspers, it's just not really working for him through Rob Schlottemacher, as he had that big twitch on the outside, leaving him vulnerable for that run into Hans Ernst. But here, once again, comes Daniel Sadro.
Sadro down low. Will he do what Steph says and try to run him a little bit wide? Nope, he is going to hold it down and not resort to those sorts of tactics quite yet. From what I've seen of Daniel, it just doesn't seem like the type of driver to pull a move like that.
Yeah, he seems like the Kimi Räikkönen of Spec Racer Ford, meaning not really doing anything with the chances he gets, not really trying to force stuff, is what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, Daniel Sandro, he does fight ever so hard as anyone else, but he does not want to force stuff if it isn't clearly there.
Continuing to pull away, they've dropped another 2 seconds back to Sadro's teammate Fitterer. It's about 6 seconds between them, and you can see the gap visibly there on screen. Coming towards the end of the pit window, though, another maybe 4 or 5 minutes, we should see these drivers duck into pit lane. We're lacking a lot of them pitting early. Nobody apparently willing to try and use an alternate strategy other than a few outliers. Elson, Love, Ray. Well, it's not an outlier for Ray, I suppose.
Now we're quite used to that from Stevie Ray, but I think lap 6 is actually even a little bit early for him, so maybe he did feel some troubles with his car and decided to go into pit lane and fix that, so he might even have to come in another time to get his required amount of fuel.
Frustration for Daniel Sadro as he continues to ride behind. Look to the inside and to Tarzan this time. Maybe just pausing to look and see, figure out if there's any sort of weakness that he can take advantage of that offers him a chance to overtake. This time a lot more tidy down to the inside from David Gaspers.
I think Gaspers learned his lesson about his line through Rob Schlottemacher Bocht. Just not really working for him. Yes, he gets the better run off the turn, but it's not worth it for how much trouble that lane gave him through the turn itself.
Oh, Hugh Haycox has had some problems coming through. I believe that was Lyondike. And it's actually all started in Kumo as well. We're going to watch to see if this pass happens as, once again, our leaders come onto the front stretch. Oh, and Gaspers is going to bail out of it.
Interesting choice there. David Gaspers taking the undercut, or Daniel Sadro taking the overcut. Let's see what works for who.
I was going to say, this is going to be telling, because if Gaspers gets out to clear track and he starts to pull away, then Sadro was riding the tail. But if Sadro is able to make up time, then that means he truly was faster than Gaspers.
Yeah, and I actually do think that Sadro has something here today for David Gasper. It just depends on how he can manage his lines right now, not having any draft. He really needs right now a little bit of a help from the back markers, which David Gaspers now has fallen behind.
Yeah, those two were fighting, but they sorted it out, and he's going to hope that they don't go side by side again, because that will hold him up. That could be bad news in this ever so tight fight with the number 51 that we watch. Our current leader, Daniel Sadro, has been trying to get the lead away all race long. He had it for a lap or two, and then it went right back to our current championship leader, David Gaspers. So out of Lyndike, does he follow suit? Does he have any more fuel to be able to go much farther? And the answer is no. He's coming in.
This is the moment of truth. David Gaspers now getting held up a little bit by Brian D. Short as Daniel Sadro enters the pit lane. Let's see who gets the fastest stop first. Will it be David Gaspers or will it be Daniel Sadro? As Sadro now pulls up to his spot and he is getting his full fuel.
Gaspers was stationary for 11.2, and he's finally freed from the lap traffic on a different strategy from him. Where's Sadro? Sadro's coming out. Is this enough speed?
He got him.
Wow. I wonder
David
if
Gaspers, his undercut did not work. Hashtag confirmed.
and they've also got Tom Gradwell stuck in there. Now, he has not pitted yet, but still, that is a buffer that Sadro probably desperately wants to keep. I don't know if he'll have it for much longer, although it does hold up Gaspers off the exit of Hugenholtz. But he no longer has a car between himself and his main rival. Can Sadro finally beat Gaspers on the track?
I honestly would have liked to see Tom Gradwell not do that. Not because I'm a Daniel Sadro fan, no, just because that would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah, force Gaspers to try and make the overtake, but Gasper's probably happy that he got out of the way sooner rather than later. 13 minutes left to go. And apologies to the rest of the field. I know we've been focusing a lot on these two, but again, championship implications, and it's for the lead. Back and forth all race long, but the roles have been reversed. Now it is Sadro, the leader, being tailed by Gaspers.
Now let's see what Gaspers can do into turn one, and especially the question will be Daniel Sadro, is he able to hold that outside as good as David Gaspers was, or will he resort to try to defend on the inside and make David Gaspers go around the outside, which he has proven to be very capable of doing that.
Behind them for fourth place, Steve Elson overtook Donald Fitterer. That was down the front stretch. And now they are back to where they were for much of the race. Donald had managed to jump him in the pit stops. Ryan Walker comes out exactly where he was before, the tail of this three-car train in P6.
However, Ryan Walker is a little bit closer than he was before the stop, so he really did do good on his pit stop, as David Gaspers still very hot on the heels of Daniel Sadler.
But this battle on screen between Elson and Fitterer is ever so close once again, because they come side by side down into Hans Ernst, but Fitterer makes the inside line work into there, and he gets the spot back up into fourth.
Great move by Donald Fitterer, and now Stephen Elson already under pressure by Ryan Walker, as they are now going through Kumo and Ari Lyndike.
But we got to go to the lead because Gaspers has a run. And he's being given the inside. Now, we haven't seen Sadro try and use this line before. Can he do the same thing that Gaspers did and carry the speed? He's going to try to, but Gaspers gets a nose slightly ahead. It swings back in favor of Daniel Sadro. They're going to go side by side through Gerlach. This is incredibly tough. It'll swing back left through Hugenholtz. Could it go in favor of Sadro, even though he's on the low line? He's going to try, and he blocks him off, covers him off, back to the left side. David Gaspers not going to give this one up, but nearly ran into the back of Daniel Sadro as they come down to Rob Slotemacher, covers him to the inside, looks for the over-under, but he gets shoved to the outside.
A little bit of a twitch by Daniel Sadro there on the inside, forcing him to go wide and run a little bit into David Gaspers. David Gaspers, though, with a great reaction, able to keep his and Daniel's car clean. However, David Gaspers not able to do anything in that situation, and he still is in second place.
Open the box of macaroni because Sadro's got his elbows out, and he is not letting David Gaspers get through if he can help it at all. The 23 is going to get another shot at it, though, as he comes off of Lyndike. He's much farther up to him this time than he was last time, but that also means less slipstream. What is this going to be down into turn one? That's the big question. It was oh so close on holding him back, and he's much farther behind down into the braking. Gaspers manages to sneak through. He's going to have to do it all over again. Sadro into second.
Yeah, great move by David Gaspers there. Just way better than Daniel Sadro through turn one this time around. Obviously already helped by the entry.
Is that a small bobble, though, down in the Hugenholz by Gaspers? Saw a puff of smoke and the car look a little shaky.
Yeah,
Sadro not able to do anything with it.
A small little drift. It's right, though. Once again, David Gaspers. Oh, that's...
Oh, they come together! Daniel Sadro with contact into Gaspers as he loses it out of Slotemacher.
And once again, a little bit wide line for David Gaspers. He pays for it.
And Gaspers is still under threat because here comes Steve Elson. How much damage did he get from that contact? He could lose multiple positions here depending on how things go. Elson looks like he's going to be able to get through as they come into Kumho. What about Fitterer? Oh!
Woohoo! David Gaspers, super hot right now. But now he's back to 5th place, and that has pretty much divided all of that up. But David Gaspers showing that he was probably a little bit too much over the limit there, pushed by Daniel Sadro in this mistake. And yeah, just very awkward there how he spun himself back onto the right side, right into the way of Daniel Sadro.
How much damage Gaspers got from that, and I also wonder how much damage Sadro got from that, because they hit corner to corner, and oof, if your suspension is damaged in this car, that is bad news for your pace.
It does seem like that both cars were able to keep their damage to minimum. David Gaspers still running right behind the back of Stephen Elson, Donald Fitterer, and Ryan Walker. Daniel Sadro still 9.5 seconds in front of this 4-car pack now for the second place.
He's certainly got plenty of time. We'll get a good idea of what his pace is.
Oh, Donald Fitterer trying it into Hans Ernst Bucht, not able to do so. That was very close between himself and Stephen Elson.
Oof, yeah, this has now become a 4-car train trying to settle out best of the rest. Elson promoted to second. Fitterer onto the podium in third. Ryan Walker probably drooling, thinking he could get onto the podium as he's been sitting behind both of them almost all race long. And in the meantime, red mist probably descending upon the German. Gaspers sitting back there as they start to fan out, and it is going to be 3 wide all the way down. And oh, Donald Fitterer gets hit in the wall, turned over by Ryan Walker. Gaspers gets 2 positions in 1.
10 out of 10 though for that landing of Donald Fitterer, able to keep it on the wheels. Obviously, no, he's actually still going with that car. That is rather interesting, but yeah, I think that is, I don't know.
I think he tried to shut the barn door after the horses have already gotten out, unfortunately. He had his nose in, he kept drifting down that Pruitt fade, and then...
I don't know. To be honest, it is very aggressive by Ryan Walker, especially because that wall is coming out, and he was nearly a full car with already below the white line. So I would honestly say that is much more on Ryan than on Donald Fitterer. After all, though, a very awkward situation.
Well, Fitterer is very damaged. He's already been overtaken by Ian Haycox now and fallen down to 6.
Oh, and Ian Wilson just had a spin and hit the wall out of Tarzan Bocht.
Oh, more problems for Elson. This one coming through Lyondike, and it started on the exit of Kumho. The curbs and the sand claims another one.
think Elson actually did. Did he?
He clipped the outside curb from what it looked like. Car bouncing around, and as he was trying to catch it, there's just unfortunately no saving it.
Don't see him on the track right now. No, there he is. All right, I found him. He is still going, but yeah, interesting. I don't know. That is an interesting spin. I've never seen a spec racer Ford do that right there.
Fitterer had to come back in and take his spare car. That sends him all the way down to 16th after he was looking to battle for third earlier on and then potentially second. But his teammate, Daniel Sadro, with 5 minutes left to go, is retaining his gap. It's not shrinking fast enough to be a worry. It's still 9 seconds between the 51 and the 23 of Gaspers.
Yeah, but Daniel Sadro had quite a slide through Hans-Ernst Bocht. First through right-hander, then through left-hander, really showing off his drifting skills in the car. But as you can see, he is still going with a little bit of damage to his front as he now overtakes Ian Wilson, or rather laps him to put Ian Wilson 2 laps down now.
Tell you what, Ryan Walker might be a thorn in the side of David Gaspers because he's close behind. This is for second place. He could yet demote him another position. I tell you what, we're going to just have to start calling Gaspers the Terminator because you can't stop him. Even on a bad day here today, he's looking at a second. He has not finished off the podium for every race that he's shown up for. The only time he didn't come out and drive, and that was at Lime Rock Park.
So you're saying he'll be back?
Always back. Cannot seem to keep him down. Although it looks like he's managing to outpace Ryan Walker, even with the damage on that car. Granted, as we ride on board with Walker, he is not without his fair share of crinkles on the metal of that bodywork.
Less than 4 minutes to go. That means Daniel Sadro comes to, I think that should be 3 to go now for him. Now coming out of the Lundig Bocht there, that last turn, as our 2 iRacing executive are smiling and waving at us.
And did something happen to Stevie Ray? He's stopped at the inside of Slotemacher. Now, he didn't hit anything that I can tell.
He just stopped. And is still stopped to this date. Now he has towed the car, so yeah, seems like a little bit of an issue for Stevie Ray there, either be it in real life or on the simulator.
I was going to say, we wonder if maybe there was a hardware failure or something that he felt it was safer to simply park it and then take a tow. His race done for the day.
Right now have a pass for 12th place. It is between Jeff Jacobson and Gary McReevy. McReevy doing it very nicely already down the front straight, passed into the braking zone for Tarzan Bocht. So he now takes 12th place to his name.
And all of the excitement of covering the battle for the lead, we failed to mention Jerry had to make a climb through. He tends to be a front runner if you're new to this series, and the fact that he failed to get a lap time in meant that we could have watched a lot of action of him climbing through, but only 12th place for the 67 seems a little underwhelming for him.
However, that is now plus 10 positions for him, starting 22nd up to 12th place. So yeah, that is all about damage limitation.
Now, speaking of damage limitation, even though it's too little too late...
Oh, Nico Schuck just spun in 11th place right in front of the battle pack for 12th place between Seeloff, Jeff Jacobson and Jerry McReevy.
Let's watch the replay of Nico, see exactly what happened here. Into Hans Ernst. A little too hot. And unfortunately, that rear end of that car loves to come around.
Oh, he just spun again through Kumo. Oh boy, not the lap for Nico Schuck.
Certainly seems like he's having his fair share of problems. And Steve Elson off track. This was coming out of Hugenholtz, another driver all on his own, and I think this one was the inside curb. Watch the left side of the car.
And you do think exactly right. Steven Ellison on the high curb on the inside bounces his car all about and spins it out.
Now, a point that I was about to make, because now we're getting the white flag and might as well make it now. Sadro is losing a lot of time to Gaspers. And as I said before, this is too little too late because it's down to 5.7. But in spite of Gasper's damage, in spite of the battles that he's had, he's still going faster than the 51. And were there more laps in this race, he could have chased him back down to retake the lead.
Yeah, it seems like Daniel Sandro has gotten a lot more damage from that hit than David Gaspers, because if you look at Daniel Sandro's car, it is moving around, especially on the braking through turn-in. So yeah, Daniel Sandro's car is limping around, but it's limping around successfully, and it seems like he will take this first place home and be the second guy to beat David Gaspers on the track.
And in credit to Sadro, he almost did it by strategy and then wound up doing it simply by making fewer mistakes. We saw a lot of near spins and errors from Gaspers, which is unusual for him. And in the end, it cost him, because that half spin where they came together is really on David for overshooting Slotemacher. I don't think he cares whose fault it is. He's just probably not happy losing out on another victory, which is going to Daniel Sadro, who wins here at Zandvoort in the Netherlands.
Right in front of David Gaspers, 5.5 seconds at the end is between Daniel Sandro and David Gaspers. Third place goes to Ryan Walker.
And the winner of the Spec 2 race, we haven't gotten a chance to cover this either. Ian Haycox, an excellent fourth, just off the overall podium. He's going to win and extend his points lead up in that Spec 2 race. Bradshaw is going to follow him home in 6th overall, second in the Spec 2, with Dobek finishing out the podium for the Spec 2 drivers.
We still have a battle for 14th place overall between Hugh Haycox and Aaron Furgele. Actually, no, sorry, that's between 15th there between the two. Hugh Haycox had to make a very, very daring maneuver through Hans Ernst Boch to keep his 15th place from Aaron Furgele, but this might go to the stripe.
It's going to be close, but unfortunately not close enough. Hugh Haycox is going to beat out Aaron Vegley. Hugh happy to take that P15. That's the last of our drivers on the lead lap, so we're going to call it a short break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll be back after we show you the upcoming races on the screen, and then after that, you'll want to stick around because we have the post-race interviews as well as the unofficial results. Circuit Zandvoort. We just watched round 7 of the Weekend Warriors presented by Sim Stickers. And Daniel Sadro takes the victory for the first time this season on track ahead of David Gaspers. Sadro certainly had to fight for it back and forth all race long. Gaspers was starting to claw him back in at the end, but he ran out of time. Both of them having damage as they came to the podium. Second place for David. Brian Walker also damaged. All three cars really, I guess. Not spick and span once they finished the race. Brian managed to finish in third, but certainly caused Fitterer to go for a tumble. Ian Haycox gets a P4 and wins the Spec 2 race. Steven Elson recovers from a few problems along the way and manages to get up to fifth. Adam Bradshaw with a sixth place overall and a second within the Spec 2. Michael Dobeck with seventh place for him. Sam Dick in eighth off of 14 on the grid. That was a good climb for him. Brian Short will manage to get ninth, and Tom Bradwell with a top 10.
P11 goes to Jerry McGreevy, who did climb himself 11 spots from 22nd to 11th place. However, as Soup would say, he's not our true runner-up, climber of this race because he did not put in a qualifying time. Geoff Jacobson, he comes home in 12th place. 13th place, our very unlucky Donald Fitterer was involved in that very awkward situation, which probably will remain the discussion point of this race. Seeloff down in 14th place. 15th place went to Hugh Haycox. Not the best race for him, but he did climb up 4 positions during this race. Same goes for Aaron Fugale, who started in 20th, finished in 16th. Bob Curran, a very unlucky race for him. From 13th, he went all the way down to 17th place. The last crown in the lead lap was Nico Schuck in 18th place. 19th and 20th went to Ian Wilson and Julio Forsolin.
Stevie Ray was 21st, 4 laps down. He actually DNF'd, so we're still not sure what happened. Same with all these other cars. Matthew didn't finish the race in 22nd. Sancinelli, 23rd, and then we had a did not start between Aguilar and Amaral. Now, we actually just found out that Stevie quit because his shifter fell into his lap, so that is no good. We do have a driver who didn't have any problems such as that, at least we hope not. Daniel Sadro with the victory and an almighty fight. Daniel, it looks like you are taking the battle to David now.
I was quite fortunate to have been able to stay in his draft for most of the race, and the draft allowed me to do a lot of battling, and then unfortunately he had his must have gone wide at the hairpin and collected me, but too bad we couldn't have raced like that for the next 12 minutes. But it was a fun race for sure.
Well, you almost got your wish, because I don't know if you saw, but David was closing in at the end of the race. Was that due to you just managing your pace because of a damaged car, or was that as fast as you could go?
That was as fast as I could go. I had fairly substantial aero damage on the front end, and it was also a bent wheel. So to go straight, I had my steering wheel about 10 degrees to the right. So there, he was going to, be faster than me on the catching up to me for sure, because I don't think he had any damage there for some reason.
Definitely had damage on the bodywork, at least that we could see. Even still, this is going to be a tall mountain for you to climb, as David managed to second place. Is there anything you can do for the remainder of the season? Can you continue to give David a real fight for this and maybe force things to be close in the championship come last round?
Well, I don't know, but I for sure am going to give it my best shot.
We look forward to that. And again, congratulations. Thank you for the fantastic race out there. We certainly enjoyed it up here in the booth.
Hey, thanks. And trust me, I enjoyed it too.
That was Daniel Sadro, our winner here today. Steph is going to be talking to David Gaspers to get his perspective on that battle that we witnessed.
Yeah, David, one thing we probably all noticed is that you got a little bit of sweat in here today. How did the fight feel for you between yourself and Daniel?
A little exhausting because it's really warm here. I think it was mainly because I was really struggling with a shortcut. I I have still no idea how to do that consistently. I had problems there the whole week.
Well, with that, we have two drivers because Joe also had some problems himself with that. But either way, you tried the inside line, you tried the outside line, and it seemed like you really had problems with that outside line, always being a little bit twitchy, always being that little bit on the, I don't want to say dangerous side, but yeah, a little bit on the more interesting side of being in these lines. And I guess that ultimately led to your mistake because of all the pressure Daniel put on you, and then also trying to make the best with what you had through there.
I don't really know if it was pressure. I just thought I wouldn't need to lift there when I spun, and my tires thought otherwise. So I spun, and somehow I didn't get any damage. I have no idea why. But yeah, after that, he was.
Well, that explains quite a lot why you were so much faster than Daniel. Either way, next up, Road Atlanta. How are you feeling about that one? Because that is pretty much our first draft track this season.
I don't think it's the first draft track, but the first one with the longest straight. But yeah, I like the track.
Well, fingers crossed for you to make it not the third time you don't finish in first place. Either way, David, thank you very much to talking to us.
Yeah.
That was David Gaspers finishing second place for the second time this season, and Ryan Walker finishing third for the first time this season, talking to Joe Peak.
Ryan, there seems to be a specific incident that has been a lot of debate here in the booth, and I'm sure it will be in the forums afterwards. Let's get right to the chase. The incident between you and Fitterer down the front stretch. What's your perspective?
My perspective is I got a good run in the exit of the final corner. He was alongside Stephen Elson, and I think, well, from what I seen, there was a gap alongside Donald as well. And yeah, I went to try and go alongside him, and I'm not sure if Donald didn't see me or not. Yeah, but yeah, unfortunately, we ended up making contact, and he clipped the wall, and yeah, I got damaged a little bit as well. But yeah, I think looking back at it, I think it was I should have just, well, from my perspective anyway, I should have just backed out of it and just kind of just stayed behind. But it's like anything, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Certainly is. And speaking of hindsight, let's back up even farther because you followed behind both Fitterer and Elson for a good portion of the race. Were you content to sit there and wait behind them, or did you actually want to try and overtake?
Well, at the early stages of the race, I was sitting behind both of them, and I thought I'm in a good position at the moment, and I didn't want to do anything too silly and risk anyone else behind catching up to us. So I just thought I'll just stay behind both of them and just try and pull away from the rest of the pack behind. What's worked out before the pit stops, and I was able to come up behind them, and also come out in some clear air behind me. So yeah, it worked well, but it was unfortunate about the incident towards the end of the race. But if I get a penalty or a protest for that, then that's understandable, and I'll happily take it.
It's very magnanimous of you to be willing to accept that if it happens. Regardless, next week we're heading out to Road Atlanta, and as Steph mentioned, that is a much faster track with a hugely longer straight. Do you think you have a chance at another podium with the opportunity to potentially stay with the draft train there?
I'm not sure. I think Road Atlanta. I've never raced. I've raced around there in other series, but in the Spec Racer Ford, I've never raced around there. So it's another track for me to learn in the Spec Racer Ford. So I think next week it'll just be a case of just see what happens and just hope for the best. But just as long as I finish in the points and or basically finish in the top 10 anyway, I'll be happy with that.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there. And again, congratulations on a podium today.
Thanks, Joe.
That was Ryan Walker, our third place finisher. And that's going to close up our interviews here for round 7. Of course, we want to give a thank you to our sponsor, which today and all season long is Sim Stickers. You can find them at simstickers.co.uk if you'd like to check out what they have in store and see if maybe they have something that could be helpful for your sim rig. Also, a thank you to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and go over to their YouTube page, click the big red button that says subscribe, and you won't miss a moment here in the Weekend Warriors. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen, and additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Our next race, we mentioned it, we're heading down to Georgia. Hopefully we won't find a devil there, but we will find some action because it'll be at Road Atlanta, Sunday, August 4th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.